It has been a crazy week for me in terms of inflammatory remarks about my dynasty value of Trevor Lawrence. First, it started last Thursday with me saying this on the Dynasty Trade Show.
I would rather have Tua Tagovailoa than Trevor Lawrence in Dynasty.
Followed closely by this just a few minutes later.
I would rather have the 1.01 in 2022 than Trevor Lawrence.
These comments led to quite a few discussions on Twitter where I was called everything from savvy to an idiot, as per usual on that app. But what finally drove the nail in the coffin was this tweet a couple days ago where I said there is perhaps an argument to be made that Trevor Lawrence is the QB5 in his own draft class. And while I don't actually believe he is the QB5 in his own class, I do believe that Trevor Lawrence is still one of the biggest sells in Dynasty right now. And let me explain why. First of all, we all know what Trevor Lawrence was as a prospect, heralded as the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck or since Peyton Manning. He was marked as the first overall pick in 2021 during his freshman year at college back in 2018, and he did nothing collegiately to change that fact until it eventually happened. But for right now, let's remove the greatest prospect of all time label and just look at the past quarterback prospects as a whole, because we know that quarterback is the most difficult position to learn and transfer to the NFL because everything gets faster, the plays become more difficult, everything just about the game becomes just so much harder. In fact, since 2000, only 40 quarterbacks have been drafted in the first 10 picks of the NFL draft, which is less than 2 per season. And while you have great quarterbacks on this list like Patrick Mahomes, Andrew Luck, and the bright futures of Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, there are also the Jamarcus Russells on that list, the David Carrs, the Mark Sanchez's. Actually, of the 40 quarterbacks with top 10 draft capital since 2000, only 22 of them have ever posted a quarterback one season, and 16 of them did it at least twice for fantasy. So just think about that. Just from straight history, you have a 50% shot of posting one top 12 season as a top 10 overall drafted quarterback and 40% to do it twice. So looking at the 2021 class, we had 3 top 10 quarterbacks, and I'm going to include Justin Fields in this as well at 11 overall, because the percentages don't change all that much when looking at top 11 picks. So 4 top 11 quarterbacks, and we're saying that there is a base 50% chance to have just one QB one season. So pick 2 out of Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields to do that, and then 2 of them will, and then 2 of them won't. So based on the Dynasty community, it seems like most people would have Lance as one to do it and Wilson as one not to do it. So now it becomes a pick between Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. So who would you pick? I mean, is it all that crazy to choose Justin Fields in this instant? Because I don't think it actually is. Many people who still believe in Lawrence are saying, well, most rookie quarterbacks struggle and then eventually they grow, they get better, and they just do better overall than what they did in their rookie year when they're learning the NFL and learning the position. And I agree with that, but to say that Trevor Lawrence struggled last year is an understatement because he was abysmally, horrendously, disgustingly awful for fantasy football and for the NFL. He played in all 17 games. He had a 59% completion percentage. He only had 12 passing touchdowns and a league-leading 17 interceptions, and he averaged only 13 fantasy points per game, which would put him at QB 32 for fantasy. QB 32. And everybody wants to say how bad Daniel Jones is or how bad Teddy Bridgewater is or even Jimmy Garoppolo, but all 3 of those quarterbacks outscored Trevor Lawrence last year by 3 or more fantasy points per game. He had only 6 games inside the top 20 at the position, which was tied with Baker Mayfield, Ben Roethlisberger, Zach Wilson, and even Davis Mills, and only 1 game better than Justin Fields, who started in 7 fewer games than Trevor Lawrence. And to take this one step further, here is a look at every first-round quarterback who threw 12 or fewer touchdowns in their rookie season on a minimum 13 games played, which means these guys are averaging fewer than 1 passing touchdown per game. And as you can see, this list sucks, with the best player being Ryan Tannehill or even Lamar Jackson, but nearly every other player was average to below average, never really had a top 12 season, and most never even actually got a second contract as a starter. And to really drive this home, you can see the percentages for future fantasy success at the top of this page, which in this case are only 31.2% for top 12 and 56.2% for top 24. Now, I do recognize that there are a lot of factors that went into Lawrence's terrible rookie season, most notably probably the worst head coaching hire in recent history. However, this Jaguars team is severely behind the 8 ball in a lot of different areas. With as many problems as they have, they can't fix everything in just 1 or 2 years, which ultimately is going to drag down Trevor Lawrence. I mean, number one, like I mentioned, they already have fixed their head coaching issue and brought in Doug Peterson, who I think is great. I think it's very stable for the team and for Trevor Lawrence. But I do believe that this hiring has overinflated his impact on Trevor Lawrence because Carson Wentz had one good season with Doug Peterson in his second year. But it seems like we completely disregard the issues that Peterson had with Carson Wentz and that organization that ultimately led to his firing in Philly. So overall, while I still view it as a positive, I'm not pushing Trevor Lawrence up my rankings just because of Doug Peterson. Number two, his best weapon to throw to as of right now is a debate between a 32-year-old Marvin Jones and a so far underperforming second-round pick in Laviska Shenault. Now, I fully believe that DJ Chark is gone in free agency. I don't think there's any possible shot that he returns or that they even sign any notable free agent at all to fix this issue. And while they could draft a rookie in this really good wide receiver class, I don't think that they would do that at the 1.01. So they have like a very small window of the 2.01 or one of their two early thirds. But then again, we're having a whole different conversation because we're relying on a rookie wide receiver as their alpha, let alone making the assumption that the Jaguars even picked the right guy. And this isn't like a Jalen Reagor drafted over Justin Jefferson situation. Sorry, Eagles fans. Number three, their Pro Football Focus 24th ranked offensive line also needs some work, as this group is just barely ranked above the dreaded Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line. Their second round rookie last year, Walker Little, looks like he should be a future piece of this line, but he missed 10 games last year. So hopefully he's back. But again, this is just another piece of the puzzle that really needs help for Jacksonville to succeed. And then finally, their defense, which gave up the 5th most points to opposing offenses last year, also needs a lot of help. And while sure, a bad defense can be good for fantasy football for quarterbacks with more positive game script and garbage time, but maybe not dreadfully bad defenses, because another thing that the NFL cares about more than us are wins. And if Trevor Lawrence isn't winning because of a really bad defense, then that can actually impact his potential for a second contract, like what we saw with Mitch Trubisky and we're now seeing with Daniel Jones. So all of those things need fixed in some capacity for Trevor Lawrence to begin succeeding at the NFL level and for fantasy football. The problem is, like I said, they can't fix all of those things in 1 year. And even if they attack one of those things moving forward every single year, can you wait 2 to 3 years for your 1.01 rookie pick to start producing well enough to trust putting into your lineup? Because I don't think you can. And that is something that I just want to emphasize as a real possibility for Trevor Lawrence's early career in the NFL. One problem that we as Dynasty players have, especially with rookies, is that we usually always see the upside. We see the potential for these players to be great, but rarely do we see the potential for these players to have a downside or even to possibly fail and bust out. Or even more rarely do we ever see the middle expectations. This guy's going to be fine for the NFL, he's going to be fine for fantasy and just be okay. We never say that about anyone, and we never acknowledge that that could happen even for the elite prospects. We didn't do it with DJ Moore, we didn't do it with Terry McLaurin, and we especially didn't do that for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and we are not doing that for Trevor Lawrence even now after his rookie year. We don't believe that Trevor Lawrence could possibly be the next Sam Darnold. We don't see a way that he could just be Jimmy Garoppolo or just be Baker Mayfield, right? What if his ceiling isn't Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow, but it's instead just Matt Ryan? Is it possible that in a decade from now, there's almost no difference between Trevor Lawrence's career and Mac Jones's career? These aren't necessarily bad things, but they are compared to his expectations and his current dynasty price. Speaking of price, this is why Trevor Lawrence is one of the biggest dynasty sells for me right now, as he is still being valued nearly as if 2021 didn't happen at all. Like, he's still that prospect from this time last year. So if you are like me and you don't believe that that ceiling or an elite career arc is there for Trevor Lawrence, now is a fantastic time to get out. Lawrence is currently the QB9 in February Superflex ADP. He's right behind Dak Prescott and Trey Lance, and just ahead of Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, and Jalen Hurts. And it's honestly amazing to me that he is still valued as a top 10 quarterback, and even recent trades from the DLF Trade Finder can certainly vet that value, as in Trevor Lawrence for Tua, the 1.07 and the 1.09, or Trevor Lawrence straight up for Deshaun Watson, or just completely hitting the reset button with Trevor Lawrence for the 1.01, the 111, and a 2024 second round pick. So if you still have Trevor Lawrence, there are two different directions I think you can take with him in moving off of Lawrence, especially within the quarterback tier himself. Is either you can move him plus a little something to move up in the quarterback tier to a Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott type, or you could go the opposite way and break Lawrence down into potentially a Matthew Stafford plus type of trade, or Tua plus plus, or multiple first round picks that could allow you to hit the reset button on another rookie like Malik Willis or Matt Corral, plus another first round pick. Those are all trade types that I would be looking to do with Trevor Lawrence right now if you have him.